Hi everyone, I'm Kristine Lee-Better. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm here with best-selling author, dynamic keynote speaker, and professor at the DeGroote School of Business, Dr. Nick Bontis. Nick, thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Kristine.
How's it going?
All good, all good.
So today we're going to talk about working smarter, not harder, and talking about teams and personal. So getting into teams, we know that team collaboration is very important and knowledge sharing across teams. What are some tips?
Sure, so knowledge sharing is critical because we all work in teams and groups. Nothing gets accomplished by yourself. And there's 4 ways to accelerate collaboration. The first one is socialization, which is what you and I are doing. Just talk to each other. You know, get out of your cubicle, get out of your office, and go talk to somebody old school, you know, mano y mano, like we used to do back in the day. Forget about the computers and the messengers. The second one is called externalization, which really means take what's in your brain and put it down into the repository of the firm. So we've got, you know, Microsoft SharePoint and Google Shared Drives. Those types of tools are very important because we co-author a lot of documents together, and we want to make that as easy as possible. The third way is combination. Combination is really about disparate parts of the organization coming together. So the famous story here is about 3M. You know, the glue people had a product that nobody cared about, and the paper people had a product that nobody cared about. But when 3M brought the glue people with the paper people together, they created Post-it notes, a multi-billion-dollar business. So that's combination. And the final one is internalization, which really means have your meetings productively. Don't go to meetings and waste other people's time. That's the most scarce resource that we all have. It's our attention. You want to have an agenda. You want to have an accomplishment. You want to have objectives. You want to have somebody who can stop people from talking too much ad nauseum, get them back on the ball. So we waste a lot of time with meetings. Let's get back our time. So those are the 4 ways to accelerate collaboration.
So what are the challenges with collaboration? We know knowledge sharing is important, but how do we get folks to do it, and what are the challenges that lie there?
Great question. So collaboration, obviously a very common term, knowledge sharing a common term. Everybody wants to do those things. But the truth is, knowledge is power, which means if I got something that you don't know, I'm going to keep it because it's going to help me with my career and my development. So in the world of knowledge sharing, the primary behavior that we're trying to deal with is called knowledge hoarding, where people actually keep stuff to themselves. And worse than knowledge hoarding is this thing called knowledge sabotage, where I tell you something, but you don't know if it's 100% of what I know. It might only be 80% of the truth and maybe 20% I left out. So knowledge sabotage becomes a very big problem in our organizations as well, because people don't freely share everything with each other. They pick and choose. They're very selective with what they're willing to give you and what they're willing to keep. Why? Because at the end of the day, we're still only taking care of our own personal careers. Nobody's going to take care of your career. So that's why we tend to hoard information. So this is really about culture, and the way you solve that problem is it's got to come from the top. Person from the top of the organization is going to percolate it all the way to the bottom, that you have to freely share your information and collaborate. As soon as the person from the top is perceived as hoarding, everybody else is going to do it as well, and you don't want that at all.
No, and we're in a very competitive environment. It continues to be that way, but the trend is also to be more open and sharing. I mean, that's why we've made so many tech advances, is because people go on these platforms and they share coding, and I mean, that's how we're able to evolve. So it's really important. So flipping over to personal productivity, what are some tips about personal productivity, and how about email? Yeah,
so email, the big disaster, of course. So the average Canadian right now is getting 84 emails in a 24-hour period. So for all the viewers out there, figure out in 24 hours how many emails do you get? Is it above the average or below the average? And then ask yourself, of those 84, how many do you really need? Like, how many are critical, stakeholder, make an impact in your organization? And chances are it's going to be about 10% or less. Email's a big, big problem, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're sending emails in the middle of the night. You're checking your email and your phone is sitting there at the night table. It's like 2 in the morning. What are you doing checking your email, right? What's the first thing you touch at night when you go to bed, when you wake up in the morning? It's your smartphone. It's ridiculous. So we've got to put that away and understand that, you know, after 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock p.m., you shouldn't be checking your emails. More importantly, you shouldn't be sending emails to anybody, because the only reason you'll check one is because you think your colleagues are sending them to you. So let's do a nice moratorium on sending emails to each other from like 8 o'clock at night till 8 o'clock in the morning, and that'll assuage some of the stress that I think we're all feeling. That's why we always want to check our phones and check our desktop, because we think we're missing out on something.
Absolutely. FOMO drives a lot of these activities. But on that note, so we have an onslaught of all sorts of platforms that are speaking to us. You know, you get the little red dots that are coming up on your Instagram, your LinkedIn, all the different social media platforms. So how do you handle all the onslaught of information?
So I think you're talking about alerts right now, because we have text messaging alerts and Facebook Messenger alerts and
all
Instagram.
those different communication channels.
We're getting bombarded in a million different ways. And what we need to understand is that's okay, because it's the modern world and it's very difficult to give it up. I mean, even when we go on vacation, we're looking for hotels with Wi-Fi just so we can have access to all that stuff. But what I think you need to do is you need to get old school again, a little moratorium. It doesn't hurt to be kind of cableless or wireless or untethered to the digital world for maybe even just a half an hour. And just chill out for half an hour. Play with the kids outside. Some of our kids have never been outside to play before. So let's do that sort of thing. I think that what that does is it refreshes you. It allows you to say, okay, I'm going to take some time out away from the email, away from the messaging, so I can refresh and replenish myself. Same thing goes with your kids, because they're always on their phones checking they need to do the same thing as well. So, go back to nature, go outside, take a deep breath just for half an hour. Make sure that you do simple things in life, like have dinner with your family without having the phone right there beside you, or take the phone and turn it off. That's the secret, Kristine. Every single smartphone has an off button. When was the last time you pressed the off button?
I couldn't even give you an answer, to be honest.
That's right.
Never.
That's right.
So how does this weigh into productivity? So obviously stepping away from email, being conscientious about how often you're checking your phone, then how does that relate into our daily productivity? So
the scarcest resource that we all possess is attention. What do we give attention to? It's really about prioritization of tasks. So we can use tools to help us do that a little bit faster. So for example, we're talking about email. I use rule wizards in my email program. So if you're using Outlook or Gmail or Hotmail, whatever email program you're using, you can establish these rules. So for example, an email from Kristine will go to the folder pertaining to the project that we're working on, or an email with this subject line. So for my students, for example, I have them put the first 4 characters of the course code in the subject line. So when those emails come in, they go right to that course folder. So that way you're managing your email flow so that your inbox is clean.
You can batch respond.
That's it. You want to have a clean inbox. I never have more than 30 emails in my inbox. Everything's got to be done. Everything's got to be done. And I get about 400 emails every 24 hours. Either folder it, act on it, or delete it. Do one of those 3s every single time. That's how you can maintain that productivity moving forward.
So it's kind of like the dentist. You got a clean mouth and good health otherwise. And you're saying if you got a clean inbox and you're back to being productive.
You're good. Yeah, that's right.
Well, thanks so much for the tips, Nick. Thanks so much for being on here today.
My pleasure.
Looking forward to hearing you at an upcoming event.
I had fun. Thanks.